the Arizona Cardinals trade for a pass rusher? Will it move the needle enough? Are they done? I don't know. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Been working in sports media in Phoenix since 2011, hosting this lovely podcast since 2017, 8th season. Thank you for being here, whether you've been an everydayer since day one or this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals. I am just happy that you're here. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Cardinals make a trade. Okay. Before we discuss who Baron Browning is, before we discuss what else it could mean, before we discuss anything that could happen in the next 24 hours or so, I must tell you, I'm recording this at a time before the trade deadline, okay? It's not by a lot, but it's before the trade deadline, okay? So if something happens as this is streaming, or if you watch it, it's not an oversight on my part. I am not just plummeting under a rock. You got to pick a time to record, and I'm picking a time to record. Anything that happens after this, I will discuss on Wednesday's show. We're going to be in good shape. We've got crossover Thursday with John Butchko from Locked On Jets on Thursday, and then we will be on our merry way into Week 10. So the Arizona Cardinals trade for Baron Browning, okay? Edge rusher from Denver. They give up a 6th-round pick. Who is Baron Browning? 9.5 career sacks, was drafted in the 3rd round out of Ohio State a couple years ago. And this is the quote that I want to lead with. Okay, first off, they gave Jonathan Cooper, their stud edge rusher, a contract extension recently, making Baron Browning expendable in some respect. This is the quote from Albert Breer that I saw on Twitter. He said, "The Broncos always liked Browning's talent, never found the right way to maximize it." Okay, he has 0 sacks. He has 4 tackles in 2024. So if you're looking just at the numbers, it's like, why the hell would the Cardinals give up a pick for this guy? Couple reasons. One, the Cardinals pass rush is so bad that pretty much anybody from any other team would be an uptick. Okay. That's kind of the backhanded answer. The other thing, when I saw this quote, it's like, where else have I heard that Vance Joseph isn't able to maximize talent? Oh, yeah. Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. I believe that Baron Browning was drafted as an off-ball linebacker, and they moved to edge rusher. Hassan Reddick. That's interesting. If there's one thing that we know about Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, above all else, not above all else, one thing that we, with definitive fashion, know about Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, they maximize the hell out of the talent of their players. They elevate the talent of their players by coaching it to be a cohesive unit, to play with each other, to trust each other. And we've seen it. Sure, Washington blew them out. Yep. The Bills put up a 30-burger on them in week 1. Yeah. And we've also seen this defense blank the 49ers and the Lions in the second half of both of the games the Cardinals played against them. Blank the Bears 2 days ago. Not as much of a feat, but still a feat in this day and age in the NFL. So we know that Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis get every drop of talent and then some out of the players who they coach. So you bring in a guy like Baron Browning, 9.5 sacks. He had, I think, 5.5 last year in 2023. He's a guy that by all accounts, I've watched a little film on him, by all accounts, just needs the right system and the right opportunity and the right coaching. And remember, the Broncos were a bad offensive football team for the last couple seasons. I mean, they've definitely, upticked this year with Bo Nix. Like Russell, they were bad last year. So that thwarts any sort of real momentum a defense has. So Cardinals give up a 6th-round pick. Pretty much they give up nothing to obtain another body in the pass rush room. there is zero downside to this. Okay, he's on an expiring contract, so it's an audition for both sides. And that's one thing that I mentioned going into this season. A lot of this year for the Cardinals is going to be an audition to future free agents, trade targets, and guys that they have on short-term deals. Now, we can see that Sean Murphy-Bunting probably not going to work out. Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, who have been healthy for the majority of their career, are both out this year. So not the greatest run by Monti Ossenfort through injury, pretty much, because all three of them are injured and not playing. Sean Murphy-Bunting wasn't playing well to begin with. But bringing in a guy like Baron Browning, first of all, is a no harm, no foul scenario. Number two is a talented guy who was in the wrong system by a coach who couldn't develop talent like Vance Joseph. We've seen it firsthand for multiple years. Even though I was high, remember, if you're an everydayer, like I'll tell you when I flip, like I thought it was more on the development of the player and not so much the coaching with Vance Joseph. I thought Vance Joseph got a raw deal with Cliff Kingsbury's head coach. So the defense pretty good out there in Denver. They couldn't figure out the right spot for Baron Browning, so now he's an Arizona Cardinal. Another thing that I want to mention in this segment is, as I'm like checking Twitter while recording to make sure that nothing's happening, is this doesn't mean that they're done. This, like, I'm seeing all over Twitter, well, the Cardinals traded for Baron Browning, so that means that Azeez Ojulari isn't going to the Arizona Cardinals. Says who? The Arizona Cardinals just pretty much signed Baron Browning for $1. It's like, who says? Who says the Arizona Cardinals are done? In what world? I guess, listen, 49 other states and the Virgin Islands, any U.S. and Guam, any U.S. territory doesn't know the Arizona Cardinals like you and I do. So the laziness of pass rusher traded, that means pass rusher, regardless of talent level and contract and everything like that, won't be traded to that team. Why not? You want to make a weakness a strength? Do it. Baron Browning, Azeez Ojulari, set. BJ Ojulari comes back next year. You know how much easier it's going to make Zaven Collins' job? You know how much easier it's going to make Darius Robinson's job when he comes back, and Kazir White and Mac Wilson and the young corners that the Cardinals have, if they get some sort of semblance of a pass rush? If the Cardinals aren't done, and it's very early when that trade was made, okay? There's plenty of time for Monti to continue to find pieces for this team. And one thing I solemnly swear, you've maybe never heard me say it, and maybe you think it's by happenstance. It's not. My moratorium in perpetuity about not blaming Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury for the state of the Arizona Cardinals roster, that's done, and I will not go back on that. I thank you for the kudos, by the way. Not one mention. How dare you? I thought we were a family here. Number two, you will never hear me say let Monti cook. I will throw up, projectile, and not edit, because I don't edit. I would projectile. I won't do it. I won't. Gives me shivers in my timbers and other places. Never. You'll never hear that. So, and we're back to not a squirrel scenario. Monti Ossenfort, he's not done. I don't think he's done. This is like not making a move, which is the very Monti way, totally. And if I have to come on tomorrow's show on Wednesday and apologize for not re-recording because the Cardinals traded for Azeez Ojulari afterwards, I'll do it happily. The point of this trade from Baron Browning, because we'll see, it's an uptick in talent in the pass rush room, which is a win. Very low impact, traded away 6th-round pick. It's a win. He was in a scenario where he was the second-string guy because they had their guy in Jonathan Cooper, who they just extended. And according to Albert Breer, they always liked his talent, but they couldn't find the right spot for him. That's where Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis live, finding the right spots to help maximize talent for their players. We've seen it all year. We saw it last year too. So that's a win. A final win. Not just about the pass rush room is Monti Ossenfort still has the world in the palm of his hand as pertaining to the next 24 hours. What do I mean? Let's get more in depth. I want everything you got again for you. Must be a Tuesday. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. The Game Time app makes everything easy to buy tickets. All events, concerts, shows, football games, Suns games, whatever it is. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff so you only see incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You know, if you've been listening or watching for a long time, when I talk about Game Time, I talk about two things. All-in pricing. You have to toggle this feature. It shows you, you're like, all right, Suns tickets. Boop. This is the total number. Well, what about, is that the number out the door? Yep. All you have to do is toggle to all-in pricing, and it shows you the final total as you're scrolling for tickets you potentially want to buy. You get a panoramic seat view from the seats before you buy them, so you know exactly what your vantage point will be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Say you want to maybe put a little cheese on a future for NFL Coach of the Year. Think Jonathan Gannon has a chance? Think he doesn't? Thinks there's another option that may have a better one, like, Dan Campbell or Kevin O'Connell? You can do that and more at the FanDuel app. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked on Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. I'm starting to do shorts, YouTube shorts. Let me know what you think. I posted a couple of them. It's a work in progress. I'm very off the cuff. I've got what I want to say. I've got my bullet points, and then I use my fantastical brain to mesh it all together. Fantastical is probably loosely defined. Please go to the YouTube channel again, search Locked on Arizona Cardinals. Hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think about the shorts. They're a minute long, snackable. Just trying to branch out a little bit. Just like Monti Ossenfort and the Arizona Cardinals are doing, trading for Baron Browning, edge rusher from the Denver Broncos, traded for a 6th-round pick. 9.5 total sacks over a couple seasons in the NFL. I think it's going to be an uptick regardless. You're going to get some fresh blood in here. You're going to get another young 25-year-old pass rusher to mold for Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. Again, I will accentuate this. Their strongest suit together, Gannon and Rallis, is maximizing talent, molding young minds, maximizing talent, playing out of their shoes compared to the talent level. The sum is worth well more than its parts. Yeah. The cohesive unit that the Cardinals have put together on defense, and I know it's been bad at times. The pass rush has been non-existent at times, but when it's good, it's putting the Cardinals in position to win games, which is a bonus. And adding another piece, it can only benefit, especially with it only being a 6th-round pick, even though he's on an expiring contract. Again, this doesn't mean that Azeez Ojulari is off the table. I don't know. One pass rusher doesn't mean that they can't. Nope, there's rules against trading for another pass rusher the same day. No. If the Cardinals want to make a weakness a strength, they can do it. And Monti Ossenfort has the world in his palm, okay? Especially in correlation to where the Cardinals have been with cap space, draft picks, etc. And this is not a break of the moratorium. These are just factual things that happened then and that happen now. And the Cardinals have all their picks now away from a 6th-round pick. Okay, they got $119 million to spend. And they have very few players who they're going to need to re-sign who are already on rookie scale contracts or Kyler Murray, aside from James Conner and Budda Baker. They are in a perfect spot They want to bunt, like with Baron Browning only, fine. If they want to swing for the fences and hit a dinger and go trade for Azeez Ojulari or another big name pass rusher, like, again, I'm just trying to keep the brain muscle moving. Stay out of the box. It's like, oh, no, that wouldn't be fiscally responsible for the Cardinals if they were to charge. They've got so much money, it doesn't matter. They've got all the picks. It doesn't matter. And remember, for some reason, I have to remind people this, you still get the player when you trade and then you pay for it. You still get the player. It's not like you're just flushing money down the toilet and draft picks down the toilet with not getting anything in return. Monti Ossenfort can do whatever he wants still. This was almost a non-move pertaining to the capital that the Cardinals have. And that's a good thing. One step forward. One thing that I used to say a lot, that I don't have to say as much because it's been working on pseudo autopilot, obviously not as, hasn't been smooth peanut butter, it's been chunky, chunky. Any step that isn't a step backwards is a step forward for this team. And this is not a step backwards. Potentially high upside, zero to little low impact on the downside. And then, listen, this is on me because it was so much about the run game yesterday. You got to give Xavier Thomas his flowers yesterday. Really, really, he showed what we saw in the preseason. Wicked first step, killer bend, and he got his first sack as a pro. It was against, again, the Swiss cheesy offensive line for the Bears. But, like, if he can emerge and Baron Browning can be a guy and Zaven Collins can show a heartbeat, and then you could still mix in the exotic pass rushes with the backers, with Kazir White and Mac Wilson and with Budda Baker, who was like a shot out of a cannon a couple times yesterday, like he was his rookie year coming out of Washington. This defense could have some sort of semblance of fear struck into opposing offenses, but there's a lot of ifs that I just mentioned. So it starts with what happens in the next 24 hours, namely on the defense. If the Cardinals trade for Azeez Ojulari, cool. It expedites the process without rushing. This is an effort to balance relevancy and moving the needle, moving the bouncing ball into a positive direction, continuing to do that, while not, liquidating your funds and overpaying for somebody, which is something that ain't no way Monti Ossenfort's ever going to do. That goes against every morsel of his DNA and every fiber of his being. So that's why, with the comments that are coming out, it's like, oh, not enough. The Cardinals, they've been fine on defense this year. They've been fine. And that's better than what if this team had a bad coach and a bad DC, this would be the worst defense in football by a long shot. Sure, statistically, they're in the low 20s in a lot of categories, namely, pass rush, win rate, and things like that. The bend don't break is what got the win against Chicago, but more so against the Chargers. Bend don't break. And yeah, they gave up a couple touchdowns to Miami. Any team would do that. So by adding a pass rusher from Denver, with the world still being in Monti Ossenfort's, back pocket, good position to be in. Now, what about the rest of the roster? Could they add pieces on offense? Is there a spot where that would be necessary? We got to discuss it because there's two sides of the ball in football and in life. The more you know. Locked On Cardinals, your team. Every damn day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. Listen, I've been through therapy, on and off throughout my life, and I understand the importance of it. And this month is all about gratitude. And along with the person I, like to shout out, like my parents who've, helped me through stuff, there's another person we don't get to thank enough, ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying the best that we can and make the most sense out of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to people in your life, including yourself. I'm hard on myself too. I'm a perfectionist, even though, we joke back and forth on this show about, how I don't edit things and how I like to, speak off the top of my head. bust my keister to do this, and I'm my own harshest critic. So I need to remind myself sometimes to do that. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So, listen, if the Cardinals don't make a massive splash, they're in a much better spot than people expected when the season started. Okay. I'm still not in a world where it's playoffs or bust this year, where it's playoffs or it's a lost season. The Cardinals had the toughest schedule in football, I would say, or top 3 by some metrics during the first 8 weeks of the season. And they went 500. If the Cardinals beat the Jets in week 10 and they go into their bye week at 6-4, regardless if they make the playoffs or not, expectations shouldn't change directly correlated to what we've witnessed up until that point. Let me explain what I mean, and then I'll get into the offense here in a second. When the Cardinals started 7-0 and 10-2, if you were listening to the show in 2021, I said vehemently, this does alter expectations, especially when they started 7-0. It's like, and they went to 10-2. It's like, okay, they had a 3-game lead, I believe, at that point in the NFC West. They ended up losing the division. So I knew what Cliff Kingsbury was. I knew what he wasn't. I knew what this talent on this team was. I knew what the downside possibly could have been, and nothing changed throughout that year to make any of it better. So yes, they started hot, okay? And then A.J. Brown didn't turn around. He and Kyler Murray weren't on the same page on Thursday Night Football, and everything changed. It wasn't that as like the tipping point, but that was the flashbulb memory that everybody remembers. What the Cardinals have now is sustainable, okay? And the peaks have been lower than what we experienced in 2021. They've been lower, but the valleys have been higher also. And I know it's difficult to remember that long ago, but trust me, it's seared into my cerebellum. My point is, the Cardinals had an overall over-under total at around 6 or 6.5 this year. If they win 8 games, regardless of how it gets there, I still see this season as a success. Is it a resounding success if they only win 8 games after being 5-4 through 9 weeks? No. But it's not a failure. This team has been in the doldrums of the NFL for the better part of 3 seasons. So the fact that the Cardinals are doing what they're doing, how they're doing it, in the way that they're doing it, and the methodical nature and the prepared nature and the cohesive nature by which they show up every week, that's a sustainable win. So I don't think that there's a world where the Cardinals can trade for any player before the trade deadline that will massively impact their chances to win a Super Bowl or a playoff game this year. There's players that will help, and especially that will be a part of the momentum going into 2025 when they've got all the cheese to spend and all the draft picks. But this has been the plan. I know fans don't like to hear it, but the Cardinals have been competitive every week since the beginning of last year, even if the final score didn't really match up every week. I mean, the Cardinals got blown out a couple times last year, but they were a much better team than a 4-win team. And yeah, they got blown out once this year, poorly, I guess twice if you want to count Green Bay. But they've played the right way and played well pretty much at the beginning of last season, grading on a curve last year with the talent level. And it's not an excuse, or it's not validating a bad scenario. Monti Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, and Nick Rallis have done a bang-up job for the majority of the time they've been here, all of whom had never held their posts they currently hold. So looking at the trade deadline, Even if they don't add another pass rusher, it's expected. Okay. It's not like, oh, darn it, we expected that the Cardinals not to do anything. No, this has been the process. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, is there anybody you can add? Let me flip back to the defense. Is there anybody else that you can add? Cornerback, like Marshawn Lattimore, is a guy that's, in trade, floating around in trade talks because the Saints they're $60 million over the cap next year. So they got to pretty much move up from everybody. Like, the Cardinals don't need, that's the 0-1 jump the Cardinals have already made. You don't need to trade for a safety. You don't need to trade for a corner. You need to make the pass rush better, and that unlocks the immense talent that the Cardinals secondary has. I mean, Garrett Williams and Max Mountain look to be the CB1 and CB2 of the future. Max Mountain is a little bit behind the curve. He's only played 8 games. Garrett Williams has played more games. Plus, Garrett Williams would have been a first-round pick if he didn't tear his ACL around Christmas, his last year at Syracuse. Max Mountain has shown flashes of a guy who will be a very good to very good corner in this league. They just need to not have to cover for 5 seconds at times, which is what the pass rush isn't allowing them to be able to do. So that's why it's like you're looking at this trade and it's like, do you need to move anybody on the offense? Like, do you trade for an offensive lineman? No, the offensive lineman been good. The run game's been good. The pass game's been fine. Kyler Murray's been fine. Like, the Cardinals team, this is what I'll leave you with. I'll leave you with a brain bender, which is it's not on purpose. It just happens to be that way after the equal sign. The Cardinals aren't far off from where they need to be. And they're still very far off from being formidable. And what they need to do to make themselves formidable isn't far off either. So, I told you, brain bender. I told you, I treat you like adults. This is something that is Stephen Hawking, would probably write me a letter of recommendation for thinking about this. Okay. Are the Cardinals a Super Bowl team this year? No. Are the Cardinals much better than people expected them to be win-loss wise, defense wise, at a good portion of the time, and the offense when it's humming, whether it be on the ground or through the air? Yeah. Are the Cardinals very far off from winning a Super Bowl? Yes. Can they add anybody during the trade deadline, aside from a pass rusher, that would make them that much better and put them closer to winning a Super Bowl this year? No. So, this is the organic, natural progression of growing an organization from the ground up. We're going to be having very different conversations come week 1 of 2025, after a full free agent cycle, after another full draft cycle, where the Cardinals are going to be the belle of the ball with all of the capital and both cap space and capital they have, combined with the cherry on top that the product on the field over the last 2 seasons, regardless of win-loss, shows a well-coached, well-coordinated, well-run team that is only missing talent. And that is something that the Arizona Cardinals haven't had, maybe ever. A reason for free agents to want to come play here outside of just getting their Terrell Suggs final paycheck. And those 3 things, draft capital, cap space, I guess 4 things. A team that's only a couple players away, and the want from free agents to come play here, to play and be a part of this, that's how Super Bowl teams are made. So it may not happen today with the trade deadline, but bigger things are in the works. And the Cardinals are doing everything necessary in an effort to position themselves to have those 4 things and compete for a Super Bowl, maybe in 2025. Anything that happened after this posted, I will discuss tomorrow. Either way, remember, without you, there is no me. I will talk to you tomorrow.